It is the first Sunday of Advent. I have always loved short stories, and a particular favorite of mine over decades, her real heyday was having many stories in the New Yorker 25, 30 years ago. A writer named Lori Moore. She wrote stories that rarely had happy endings. That might not surprise you about me. And she moved into novels. At one point, those weren't great, so I still treasure her short stories. There's one in particular about a family that is fraying around the edges because they are spending most of their time, all of their time, in what the writer calls ped-onc, which of course is short for pediatric oncology. And it is a devastating story in many ways, and the protagonist, the mother, talks about the affront, almost the insult of the bright lights and gaudy colors of a play area in ped-onc, a play area for the other children, the children that are just there because their siblings are the ones who are sick. These bright things for people who are not ill but have to be there. And then there's a line in the story about courage. She says, "Everyone keeps telling us how courageous we are here, being where we don't want to be, as if we had a choice." Right? That's the funny thing about courage. Our theme this Advent is courage for the coming of Christ. Courage for the coming of Christ, and that is important and valuable. But I think sometimes we put courage in a category of the heroic, when in fact faithful courage is in the category of the everyday, the getting up again, the carrying on. Courage, the root of the word courage, is the same etymology as the word for heart, cardiology, courage, encouragement. Same thing. And you and I, we all know that mystical four-chambered thing that is relentless inside each one of us, until it is not, is much more than an emoji, right? Heart is everything. So today I want to consider courage and consider Christ. What is faithful courage? But let us begin with Christ. It is the beginning of our new year, and I want to invite you for a moment to take our gaze over the next 52 weeks. Like, you might even, it's Advent. Like, if Advent is here, we've got 4 weeks, and we prepare for the first and second comings of Christ, a baby and a mystery that we don't know when the second coming is. We can often have the impatience of the early church. When is Christ going to come? Although I think some of that impatience on our part is manufactured, right? Do you really want the end of the world? I do and I don't. I long to be with God, and yet I love life here. The Gospel of Matthew that we read this morning is near the end of Jesus' earthly life and ministry. It's the last chapter, one of the last chapters before we move into the Passion and Resurrection. And it is so often wrongly used to be about rapture theology, which is bad theology, all right? This idea that somehow God is going to scoop and get the good people up has so many things wrong with it, I don't even want to spend time on it today. A possible reading, and I think a new possibility in this section of the Gospel of Matthew is this. Talks about Noah. Remember in the days of Noah, and they didn't know the flood was coming, and they were carrying on, and the flood comes. Remember Noah. Not the nice, bright, gaudy, cheerful children's story we often have it, right? Because it's God having second thoughts and obliterating most of the people. So the reference in Matthew to the days of Noah goes something like this. They didn't know when it was coming, and then they came and there were two working, and one was then gone, two working in the field, and one was then gone. I think there is a very good possibility that the faith remains in those who are still there carrying on the work. Those who are taken away in judgment, perhaps. Judgment is real. It matters how we live, right? But the faith is in what remains. The faith, the work continues, the preparing of food, the tending of crops. And so that is how we begin Advent, these 4 weeks. We have these two horizons of hope. So look at these 4 weeks, these two horizons of hope. The first coming, the second coming, and then 2 weeks for Christmas. We have the Nativity, we have the Kings. We have 12 days for Jesus to go from 0 to 30. It's amazing. Epiphany, the season of Epiphany and the feast of Epiphany is a visit from afar, a sign that a world unknown, a world beyond us, sees and receives the grace of God. This is important for people like me and you because we think ourselves smart, right? And the idea that God can be present with people that we cannot even know or understand is not only true, but a good idea. So the season of Epiphany goes for several weeks. We're about here, and then we begin the other cycle. Advent to Epiphany is the Nativity cycle, and then Lent through Easter is the Passion cycle. Jesus' walk towards death and resurrection. It is not only about death and resurrection, but how he took those steps, that daily work, how he was on the way there, how we are when circumstances lead us to be in Pied Ankh, which is anywhere other than where we would like to be. The courage is in those daily steps. In Easter, it is the season of baptism. What does baptismal life look like? And then the longest, we call it ordinary time. This is the season of those who are left grinding the wheat, the season of those who are left harvesting the crops, looking in the gardens. This is the season that reminds us, as Rachel Held Evans says, Jesus didn't just come to die. What a relief that is. Jesus didn't just come to die. She goes on. Jesus came to live, to teach, to heal, to tell stories, to turn over tables, to touch people who weren't supposed to be touched, to break bread, to pour wine, to wash feet, to face temptation, to tick off authorities, to fulfill scripture, to beat death by rising from the grave. It is so much more than we anticipate sometimes. So we are grounded in this cycle. I got us all the way around. I didn't even do it. 4, 2, several, 5, 7, couple more, 22, 25. And we're back again at Advent. Here we are. We are grounded in the life of Jesus, and how we do that is what makes us devout. By devout, I mean sincere, wholehearted. Knowing ourselves and how and where we find ourselves, grinding the grain and going to work and hoping for a better world, the way we are in the midst of things that we cannot choose, the circumstances of our life. So we have considered Christ, so then let us turn to courage to welcome Christ. At our clergy conference earlier this year, back in May, Bishop Kim gave all clergy a copy of this book by Marianne Edgar Buddy, Bishop Buddy, famous for many. It's called How We Learn to Be Brave. I believe with all my heart that bravery and courage are part of everyday life. If you were to do an inventory and consider your own bravest moment, what would it be? I am sure you have several. There is the bravery of staying put when all you want to do is leave. But there's also the bravery of leaving when you are afraid of the unknown. There is the bravery of those who say no to addiction day after day, that another day is a success. There's the bravery of those who say yes to life in the midst of depression. There's the bravery of just showing up with your best, knowing you are at your worst. You see, this kind of courage is grounded in knowing ourselves and our powers and seeking God. In that lesson from Isaiah, there's something marvelous that happens. It says, let's go learn the things of God, the spears into pruning hooks. There will be war no more, O house of Jacob. Come, let us walk in the light of the Lord. The marvelous thing about that lesson from Isaiah is that it's chapter 2. Do you know where Isaiah gets called to be a prophet? It's chapter 6. This is before anything big and beautiful and brave, the kind of courage that we might think this is before anything big happens to Isaiah. He says, let's go learn the things of God. Let's go learn the things of God together. Viktor Frankl famously emerged from the death camps at Auschwitz. He was a sociologist and therapist. He had lost his family, his work, his position, his university, everything. And he wrote a very small book called Modern Man in Search of Meaning. Many have read it. It is worth reading and rereading. And he reminds us that everything can be stripped away by circumstances that we cannot control. Everything can be taken away except our attitude, how we react and respond to the things that befall us. There's just courage in not giving up, in acknowledging that failure is part of what we do. And that when we are grounded in a hope that is in God, living toward God is brave enough. Reinhold Niebuhr said this. Pains me to share this with you, but it also is a good reminder for me that it is true. Reinhold Niebuhr says this: nothing worth doing can ever be achieved in a lifetime. Really? I had such high hopes for myself. Nothing worth doing can ever be achieved in a lifetime. Therefore, we must be saved by hope. And that is what this Advent courage and this Advent season is about. You know, and I know, I love a heroic story. I love a saintly story. And most bravery and most courage is private and daily. The faithfulness of small food pantries, the faithfulness of a few cans brought by a few people to become an even larger deposit of hope in a hungry time. And so we have Advent. Advent invites us to count our days. That counting is its own thing. I know it's not Thursday for my weekly phone call, but did you know that Advent calendars are on their way out? Yeah, their days are numbered. But then I think of those of us who count our days, which is all of us. In Advent with children, we use an Advent calendar to count and look forward to the shiny, sparkly, gaudy things beginnings of Christmas, right? Every day we get a little bit closer. But we also count in solidarity with prisoners and sufferers who can only count days. This one, and the next one, and another. We count with those who take a step forward every day, a yes to life, a yes to what this day brings. Solidarity with the weary, with the long-haul workers. We count week by week, 1, 2, 3, 4 candles, a lighted way toward a greater light of our Advent hope. And so our prayer this Advent is simple. May you have the courage to be devout. May you have the courage to be brave every day in ways that only you may ever know. May you have the courage to have a sincere heart that we can recognize Christ when he comes. Amen.